Okay, so good afternoon, guys. Today, my name is Tansiebwa from JBSN Media, and I'll be taking you through the that is the branding and visual identity. Okay, this is one of our lessons, lessons 8. Okay, yes, this is lesson 8, and we will be doing branding and yeah, we are looking at branding for today. So, what is branding? What is visual identity? Okay, so what you would want to know, what you want to, how you would want to define these things would be branding is what people think about you. Okay, basically, branding. Someone will be like, oh, yes, oh, this is my brand, I've branded myself, or oh, this person's branding is very good, and it's all about what other people think about us, what other people think about our looks and things. And so, in the same way, when you come to design, you ask yourself, what have we done? What are the designs we have put out there to make people think, or to make people have a perception about us? Or what's the perception that we are creating for people to have about us? Okay, that is what branding is about. And so, depending on the various elements and the combinations of the things you use in your graphic designing to make that final product, the people would have a certain visual understanding or a picture of you or your company or your product or your service. Okay, and visual identity is what the brand looks like. Okay, so from your logo, your color choices, and all, that's what the brand looks like. So visual identity is more about you, the decisions you took as the designer. Okay, so it's looking at more of the decisions that you took, and so you decided to use sans serif font. You decided to use a picture which is grainy. Okay, for those of you who don't know, this is what grainy picture looks like. So you decided to use grainy images for your graphic designing for a company, and that grainy feel that you have given them is what is the visual identity that you've presented to your brand, to your audience. But what the audience may see may not be probably the green and things, but it will be okay. This is their kind of style of pictures that they use. They may not know the definition and all, but they know that okay, when it's coming from JBSN media, there might be gradients, there might be different color palettes, or probably if it's coming from JBSN media, it may look sleek, it may look organized, or so. It depends on what you, the visual, what you, the graphic designer, creates. Okay, and so when you look at the branding, you look at visual identity. These things are are just aspects of marketing in general. Okay, and so graphic designers play a very big role in marketing for a lot of companies. And what does marketing have to do with the company? Marketing is how the company gets to push out their product. It's how the company gets to make people know of what they do, their vision, their goals, and all. Okay, so you, the designer, plays a very integral role in that because you are the one who creates that mental picture. Okay, that is what branding does. Okay, so now when you are dealing with visual identity, okay, it can help you make thoughtful decisions. Okay, why thoughtful decisions? Because at the end of the day, whatever you are going to do, you know that okay, if I'm going to be using red, I'm sticking to red, and once they see me, they know, once they see red, they know that yes, this is this. A typical example would be um the network providers that we have here in Ghana, or network providers out elsewhere. Currently, Telecel is red. Okay, so I'll use the example of Telecel. Why? Because Telecel is red. So when you see red, we are associated with Telecel. We see yellow, we are associated with MTN. We see red and blue, we are associated with Airtel Tigo. Okay. Now imagine that Telecel, shifting from Vodafone, decided to use the color purple. Okay. If they use the color purple, and at that point these people, that is Airtel Tigo, decide to use more of red in their designs, at that point what's going to happen is that now their decision, that is Telecel's decision to use the purple now, wouldn't make us recognize that Vodafone company that they are coming from as the same company. Okay, we would think that it's a different company altogether. And so because of those choices, yes, so because of those choices that the designers make, aside the client or the company they have decided to make, that is what that is why we can mentally as associate Vodafone and Telecel together, because of that color choice that they've done. But sometimes too, we want to also use different things too as well. We have in mind that okay, um these are perhaps the colors we want the people to recognize us with. Okay, this is the brand that we want to push to them. That when you see red, you see white, you see someone on it, it's probably KFC. You can look from behind and just see that okay, this is KFC. Okay, so sometimes these things help us. It helps we the graphic designers. It helps us to create that identity for our company or the people that we are working for.
Can you hear me?
So okay, so when you're looking at brand identity, okay, it's like a preview of your brand. So each part of the design is a clue and tells you whatever the viewer, it tells the viewer what they can expect. So basically, as I've said, visual identity, you the graphic designer are in charge of the visual identity as well as the branding. Okay, but it's based on the things, your visual identity for that work, that work or that brand, that the audience will be able to associate the brand with your company. Okay, and these things are because of the things that, or the elements, okay, that we have selected to make up that visual identity. Okay, so we've spoken about in our previous lessons or earlier lessons, we've spoken about typography, we've spoken about color palette, so we've spoken about images, we've spoken about what other one, the principles of design. These are the things that affect that visual identity. Okay, so you can apply these concepts of identity to any project that you're doing, and when you apply these principles to the visual identity, it helps us to know, or it helps us create that brand for the company. Okay, now sometimes, okay, you can use, some companies will use a style, okay, to keep their brand consistent. How is that so? That style is all part of the elements that we've spoken of. So in this picture here, we see that they are using a certain font, they are using a specific color. Okay, they are using probably one or two choices of colors or fonts, as well as the logo, okay, to put for that style. So in this picture you can see that okay, this is probably a document form, okay, and in this document, or this is a CV, okay, and this CV that was created, we cannot use Microsoft Word to create a CV, but this is a CV which has been in a way designed, and the person has designed it because we are able to see okay, they've added icons, they've added colors, they've added some hierarchy of typography. Okay, with hierarchy of typography, I see this font here, the education font is bold, this font here is bold, this font is not bold, it's just the normal fonts, and some fonts too are going to be italic. Person has combined that with a logo as well. And if the person wants to translate that to his website, his personal website portfolio, he will also maintain all those things in his CV. Okay, and so you see now the style follows along. So when we the audience sees, we are like, oh yeah, we know that this is from Fran Ramirez. Okay, because we are following that style. Now color, okay, also affects it. These are the things which affect the branding, affects the visual identity. Mainly color, mainly logo, typography, and images. And how do we apply it here? For instance, we have a logo, okay, and the logo that we have has colors, and based on those colors, for instance, we can have our primary colors for our logo. So our logo may consist of this color, the hex code is over here, this color and that. So let's take it as, please, the colors I'm about to mention are entirely wrong: peach, orange, gold. Entirely wrong, but this is it. We have a logo containing peach, orange, and gold, and that logo that we have, we would then get secondary colors from it that can pair up with the logo, so that in case we have to do an artwork for a different thing for that company, we are able to still get some other extra colors to play around with, so that these three colors don't become boring for us. So we maintain these primary colors, and then would have a typography. So everybody knows that if it's coming from MTN, you know that MTN has a font. See MTN here, the MTN logo over here, okay, has a certain font that they use for all their designs. So if I type MTN font, I think I typed the wrong thing. Yeah. So if I type MTN font, you see that I will get the MTN font. I'll get the MTN font, and the MTN font, we you know it when you see it, because the word Jane inside is always going to be like this. Okay, so when you are creating the visual identity, you want to associate that with the typography. So MTN, for instance, uses this kind of font for most of their designs. Okay, they use yellow for most of their designs. Now you ask yourself, okay, if they want to make a flyer, is it every time that they will have to use yellow? No, they've picked it from the logo, and so the logo is black and yellow, and so they will usually be doing black and yellow. Okay, and those times it used to be blue, so you can say perhaps blue is their secondary colors, or yes, their secondary colors, they may use blue or red or something, but their primary font may probably be yellow, black. And sometimes to the secondary color you pick other colors which would sort of cover every other kind of design or graphic you are trying to do. Because if you have official documents, maybe the yellow may be too much, so you may want to use lighter tones, you may want to use black, white, grayscale, and all those things as well. Sometimes the images too, also most of the time the images adds up to the visual identity. The image, like I explained, could be the feel of the image as well. Okay, so let's take each of these elements and look at how it contributes to the identity, the visual identity. Now the logo is what usually defines our brand, and it's usually a mark, type, design, or both. From our lesson, we've looked at shape, a logo which is entirely shape based, a logo which is shape and text, a logo which is both, a logo which is shape, text, image. And so you can have a logo. There's a logo made of shape and text. Okay, and from this shape they can then use this shape to further make other designs from this shape. They can further make other designs from this typography. Okay, so your logo is contributing to your brand identity. Why? Because brand identity is what the audience sees you as, what they can identify you with. and your logo is usually the first thing that you're able to identify the company with. We have Trail Finder, we have Instagram, we have Google. Once you see Google, the Google, we're able to identify that, oh, this is a Google company just with their logo. Okay, so I can see Google. I'm like, oh yes, this is Google. This is Instagram. Why? Because of the logo. They don't necessarily have to type Instagram for me to know it's Instagram, but we're able to identify that that's Instagram just because of the logo of Instagram. Now it says including your font, choice colors, and other imagery. So a change even one of these elements and it can have a big impact on your way your brand is perceived. Okay, so when you are doing a branding, when you are doing the visual identity, create a visual identity for the client, you know that okay, we are sticking to these kinds of fonts, we are sticking to these kinds of primary fonts. For headers, for subtitles, we are sticking to these, and for shapes we are going with these. Okay, once you change it, it can change a lot. Okay, as I've mentioned in the previous the telecell migration thing, for instance. So you'd usually want to maintain that. So what most people do is that what most companies do is that they have these fixed things. So if it's color, they have something like this. We have a color palette for our company. When we want to color anything, we are using these specific colors. Okay. Why? Because when other designers are coming to also do designs, when other companies are also working on videos and all those, they will still have to use those elements of the logo or of your branding in total based on that to create other things for other, whether it's motion graphics, video, or any other thing. Okay, so this is how Trail Finder is, and another designer decided that okay, nah, this time we want to change the Trail Finder, and they use this. It changes the thing entirely. This is a different company now. Okay, that is why we create logos for companies. Why? Because once the company has a logo, okay, we associate it with that. Now, most of the times, if you're having master design, you would mess up people's brand identities. Okay, you would, instead of using the font that the person uses, you go and use a different font, and it actually does have an impact. Okay, because now I see this, and now all I'll be thinking of is okay, probably this is Troll Finder, but this is a fake version, because Troll Finder would have probably used a different font for that. And that is why when we were in high school or SHS, we would say okay, this is Nike, this is Adidas. Why? Because I can go for a Nike and the mark alone is flipped the other way around, and I'm like, no, that's fake. Okay, it's all part of how people identify your brand. Okay, how do you be able to tell that Adidas is fake? It would either be the spelling mistake, it would either be the number of stripes, it would either be the font that will be changed, it would be a spelling mistake. Three stripes here, three stripes here. If it's four, we know that that is not Adidas. Okay, and so when you are making or creating logos, or when you are working on an existing logo, or you are building the brand or the visual identity, you want to make sure to stick with these elements. Okay, all right. So in practice, logos are everywhere. Okay, everywhere. It's everywhere. It's like you, anything you pick around, you should get a logo. I'm looking at my mouse right now. I don't know if I'm finding a logo, but no, this is a good example. But yes, my PC is an HP. There are MacBooks out there. I pick out the PC. I know that okay, yes, this is an HP. Okay, every product has a logo on it. Every authentic product has a logo on it, and so the logo is how we would associate you to your product. Okay, now you don't want to give them a wrong impression of you don't want to give the viewer a wrong impression. Why wrong impression? If we have a logo that's pixelated, distorted, or maybe it's too small to give them a wrong impression. Why? It's pixelated. Is it really coming from this company? Has some 2 by 4 or some quack graphic designer try to imitate this? Okay, that's why we've taught you guys how to pick up things from the internet, how to get the correct resolutions too as well. Okay, so basically, if you have a logo and it's looking like this distorted, when I see this thing, I'm just itching. Why? Because the aspect ratio that the designer made the logo with is supposed to be maintained, and so once you distort it, you change the whole design altogether. Okay, these simple things, once you are able to know them and keep or follow them, then you're able to actually follow well with someone's branding and identity. Now, the reason why we are learning about all these things is because we are going to give you a good project, and you're supposed to maintain that brand, that identity, maintain that branding, or develop the visual identity for the project that you are going to work on. And so we don't expect you to be changing people's logos, using the down versions of the logos and all right. So it says, to combat this, keep a master digital copy that is sharp, in high quality, and large enough for your project. This is why our lesson says that first export it as a JPEG, JPG from Canva, or whatever app you are using. And when you do that, you have the fixed version, and we have in mind that you are creating a 1080 by 1080 pixel file, and then go and extract the go and make the white, remove the background from it too as well. Okay, so when you do that, you're able to keep it, and we ask you to name it as a specific way. Sometimes these are some of the things that you take note of. A professional logo, if um if you want to really advance your logo design. Okay, for instance, logo brand identity, no, visual identity, we usually submit logos in different formats. Okay, but what you want to do for your client is that you want to have a black and white version, a version which, when it's on a white background, we are able to still see everything clearly. When it's on a black background, we are still able to see everything clearly. All these things we added to the visual identity created for our clients. Okay, why? So that if they have to use the logo for an app, they have that available. Okay, if you are going to use it for probably a website, you have that logo available. Okay, these are the reasons why we do all those things. So usually when you're presenting logos, you're presenting the brand, the whole visual identity to your client. It's as if you're taking a whole project. You want the person to understand that, okay, this is the logo that we have created, and from this logo we have picked elements of the logo. So we have the color, we have the colors here. If you are going to use it for a CD, this is how it's going to look like. On any other thing, on a t-shirt, this is how it's going to look like. Okay, if it's an app, this is what it's going to look like. Pen, you want to create the whole, like, you want to create just a mental picture of what the logo that you have created for the client, how it can be used in the different and various ways. Okay, so basically, when it comes to logo, you're looking at creating a white background version, black background version. You're even looking at a very simplified version too as well. You're even looking at creating an icon for the logo too as well. You know the icons, by now you're going to get icons. You know the icons are very simplified versions. They may or may not have color. So you also want to create that version for your client too as well, so that when the client wants to use for any of these things, they're able to do that, right? And because you remember that I've spoken about raster images and vector images, and so you want to make them as vectors. Okay, you're going to use the pen tool to actually draw the logo instead of using pictures. Okay, why? Because once the client or the company wants to use that logo for a big print, for instance, we have this hot air balloon. Imagine the logos that you guys did for your assignment. We want to use it on this. We can't use it. We would have to remodify it again because those were pictures, those were JPEGs. Okay, so we need to submit rather the vector diagram for them so that they can expand it, as make it as big as possible, and it will be still sharp. Okay, these are all things which contribute to visual identity, but you can skip all these technical things if you know that okay, the person's brand, you don't need that at the moment. Sometimes it depends on the client's budget too as well. Now, what is color and how does color define our brand? You can watch our video for that. But the color, we know that we can associate our branding, our visual identity, we can associate the company with that color or that color palette. Okay, so it's very important because you the designer, honestly, you the designer are responsible for whatever color the website developer is going to be using, because you are the one who literally created that for them. Unless if the client or the company has specific colors and things they want to use, but mind you, your very first work with a logo, your very first work with perhaps the whole branding, the whole visual identity is what would inform other units of design or other units of the marketing in total on how to go about it. The website designer will pick up the same color palette. The website designer will pick up the same way you do your drawings, the same way you present sans and things, and will also use that for that visual identity in website design too as well. Now, colors, okay, or let's say color palettes, okay. We have, for instance, this example is focus photography, and focus photography has just basically two colors, but you develop a color palette for them as well, and sometimes you can develop secondary or tertiary or other secondary colors for them. Why? Because probably at some point people will get fed up of this color, so you should have other colors which you can actually blend in together, which are either contrasting or they are complementary or analogous, which would also make that which will bring that moderation when it comes to your coloring. Now it says avoid common pitfalls like vibrant colors or colors that are distracting your viewers from your work. But I know that in graphic design there's no rule, because that may also be the brand identity. Okay, this company, they are responsible for using when you go to their website you can't see anything. It's a brand identity that you want to make the audience feel, okay, through your visual, how your visual identity is. So you see this, and this is in quotes bad design. Why? Because the color choices are, they have very similar luminance, or their light levels are very close to each other, so you can't really see anything because there's no contrast mainly. So that's something you want to avoid, but it depends on what you are, the visual identity that you have for your client. Now it says make sure to include neutrals to your color palette, black, gray, white, and also that you're able to create contrast to as well. Some brands may never use white. Okay, they may use rather gray, light gray, or something of that sort. Now let's go to typography. Now typography is one aspect of identity, and it can be surprisingly expressive. Okay, all it takes is a different font and you can change the entire feel of your brand. So this brand, Angel Food Bakery, and someone decided, a new designer comes and like, okay, I need your logo. Okay, then he is able to create all these things with the pen tool. You trace all these things, then it comes to the font, he's not finding the font and he decides to use his own font. That's all, you've changed everything about it. Okay, unless it is, for instance, they have a logo, they have an event they want to create, and you can't use the same font as the logo too as well. Okay, so usually they use about 2 or 3 fonts, and then what do they do next? They have other fonts that they can use too as well when they want to make other things. In designing or typography, you want to avoid all these fonts and rather choose timeless fonts. Why do you want to avoid these fonts? Because we've seen these fonts before. These fonts have been there since the ages. So picking a font like this papyrus to do your design or typography, whether in website designing or creating um, a magazine for someone, wouldn't be the best. We've seen it before. All of a sudden, once you use the font within this, it looks archaic. That's the word. But some of the fonts, we call them timeless fonts. Helvetica is one of these timeless fonts. It's been there since, but then it's still being used till date. Okay, so these are what we call timeless fonts. You want to use fonts which are, for those who are interested in um, website designing, that is especially for you. But for we the graphic designers, um, so for we graphic designers, we may make our fonts differ every time depending on the feel we have for the event or the program that's going to come. Okay, so let me give you a quick example here. There's a JBSM Media Pinterest account, and let me show you or demonstrate to you how we develop the brand identity, the visual identity or the brand identity for clients. So I'll go for one of the political flyers. We have this. Okay, so this image, okay, was created for person A and person B. Now we decided that okay, we want to use black and white and red too as well. Now this is how this color palette affects everything here. The background, we are not sticking to any color, it's just plain black and white or grayscale. Their ties, okay, when you take a photograph, you don't get plain black and white like this. Okay, sorry, let me just come with that. Let me just be done with the typography. So with the typography, we decide to use the blueprint, and this is the font we are using. But this font over here created here is just a subset of their main visual branding type, or their main typography that we use. Right, because this is what we used for them. We use Sanko font, okay, and this is the Sanko font. And so in all other works done for them, we made sure to be using the Sanko font, and you see that with the E, especially the way the E is, okay. And so we used that to create the visual identity for this client. Right now, if you check out other designs too, you see that we continue using our Sanko font too as well. Sanko font is here. Then we have our secondary fonts that we are using here and here as well too, and all those fonts, all their flyers also follows a similar thing. So this same font will be used for a heading for the previous font that we used, okay. And we are maintaining our color palette: red, white, black, okay. Now if you look closely, okay, the logo, we received the logo from someone else, and the logo was entirely black, and so we decided to keep that element of black inside. And even when it came to the picture, okay, you see that their skin tones are reddish to match that color palette, and the black that we are using here too as well is very deep black. Okay, it's purely black, there's no ash inside, it's just black. That is syncing with the Tay logo over here. Mind you, this is for Medical Students Association in Kumasi, and their logo is red, and so we decided to use the red too as well. For a flyer like this, the school here was KNUST, but we are not interested in the KNUST, so we added no element of yellow in there. Sometimes you can pick colors from, in designing flyers like this, sometimes you can pick colors from any element that you see around. Maybe what the person is wearing, for instance, this They are wearing yellow, blue, so they are wearing yellow. So we can pick this one from here, come and bring it here too as well. But sometimes you may decide to use something different altogether. It just depends on the visual identity you want to create for your client. And so this duo, this is the visual identity you created for them. Now, for let's see, this is a game. It is a yard sale. Okay, and this is the visual identity you created. Visual identity is more of this over here is their yard sale, and this over here is their movie night. Okay, and so you can see the color palette is consistent. We have the yellows present, we have the red present too as well, and you see yard sale here is faint yellow, or this pale or broken off yellow. Okay, so you have Kenya's TMSC here being that same color yellow, yard sale here being the same thing here. The icon boxes, the icon shapes are also yellowish in color. You see also here that we have our yellow present here as before. And so the visual identity we created for Kenya's MSC and their flyers is red and yellow. A different designer may decide that no, we want to use a different identity for MSA flyers. And so with for instance, with university students and the kind of flyers that they want, you usually want to either make him you want us to associate the color mainly, because they do quite a lot of programs, and so mainly want to associate the color. You know that it's red is coming from here, it's yellow is coming from here. So that is what we as ABSN decided to do for the MSc. So see that it's consistent there. Over here we are not maintaining fonts, we are not maintaining the what's the name, the typography in any way, because these are we don't maintain the typography here. What you rather do is that for every event you decide, or you create that visual identity for that event. Okay, so visual identity goes a long way. You realize that if we pick one event, okay, let's say the team, this was a variation that we did for them. Okay, this was a variation that we did for them. And why? Because we wanted them to have something new altogether. It's like, where is this coming from? Perhaps those people who are interested in a yard sale and they don't want a yard sale in general will decide to go for it because they don't want to associate themselves with MSC or this association. Okay, but that is why we decided to do this one for them. But finally the client decided that they would want the red version because that is their color. That's the color that they move it. Okay, so you create visual identities for entire corporations, you create visual identities for events. Okay, so within, if you look here, this is MSA Games. Okay, and we created a logo for the MSA Games. So you have a flyer made up of a logo like this. We have the anticipate font here like this, and this same logo you will see that it's going to be present, okay, in probably the subsequent flyers. And so we have these other two flyers for the countdown, this and this, and you realize that this countdown has the logo here, but then not with that 3D-ish or that perspective feel. Okay, it's just plain, so you see it's here, it's present here. Okay, but you realize that at least the colors are, we have the reds, we have this dark red too here as well, and some highlights of yellow, and you see the highlights of yellow still here. You have the red here, dark red here too as well, highlights of yellow over here too. And we are transforming the we don't want it to be boring at some point, and so we decide to use a different format altogether, so it looks new but you can still associate the countdown flyer with this current one. This is 5 days more, and you realize that over here we are still using this font, and this font can be seen here. Okay, so the anticipate font we are still keeping that one here for the anticipatory. So with the anticipate font we are using a certain font for that. 5 days more here is still anticipation. 23rd March 2024, still anticipating it as well. Okay, and we have still our color palette being uniform. Okay, so basically that is how branding visual identity works practically when you are doing a whole event for a company or association. You want to keep something consistent, the colors and all. Maybe for a different, maybe for just one event, or maybe for their entire social media, what they want to be sending out there. They may have a unique visual identity for maybe all posts for 2024. It must have this font, it must have this color and all. So it depends on what you are doing, then you generate that visual identity for them. So images also has the unique identity, and we are not looking at just images, we are looking at images, shapes, graphics, icons that we create. So icons, you can use specific icons, and those icons should also resonate with your design that you do. You most at times you would for instance this um with this one and this one, what we are looking at is, instead of using icons, or we've placed this grunge texture, and this like a painting here, okay, which is just bringing or contrast to these info given. Okay, so when and you see this grunge texture is also here to as well, so it's like now, okay, this thing's looking grungy and all, or it's like some brush, it's like a brush stroke of some sort, and you have here, you come here and it's still reoccurring too as well. Okay, so that's how you create the visual identity with icons. Sometimes or mostly you would see that websites would be using the way the icons would be looking like their buttons and all. That one is more about websites. Okay, and so this is a design class, and so if you are doing website design too as well, you pay attention to these things. And even within photos too, you want to make the brand colors to stand out sometimes, or the look for all your photographs. And so photographers have presets and templates they create, they edit the pictures and they make it suit that theme. Okay, and so we have yellows, we have whites, even some people go much detailed that even the kind of white you find inside, all the whites are this white over here is slightly bluish. Okay, it's the same thing we're having here, and the whitest portion over here too is a bit slightly bluish as well. Aside that, we have the yellow going to be present and more going to look would cover about more than 30% or 40%. It depends on the visual identity you want to create, or the visual identity that the company wants you to follow to as well. So sometimes when you want to really create that visual identity for the brand or the company, you may end up going to actually get photographers to take those pictures, because third party stock images are not they weren't planning with you, so they just done their things. All you go and do is, for instance, if you have pixels.com or on splash.com, these are sites where would give you all the free stock plugins, and you can just reference them anytime to as well when you use their pictures. And so I can decide, okay, I need to use this one for an MSA flyer. What do I do? I have blue here instead of red, so what I'll decide to do is to change the hue of this image, change the blue to red, and I'll be able to use that in my image, or probably make the yellows inside red or something of that sort. Just edit the picture to suit your visual identity. Okay, so that's another way to go about it. All right, and then to put it all together, we are looking at visual identity. It isn't just a marketing tool, but it's a way of looking at design that removes a lot of guesswork. You don't want to be guessing where is this flyer coming from. But like I said, it's not every time we follow the rules. Sometimes you want them to guess where is this coming from. A typical example is what the new force has done. So if you are someone really interested in design, you see that what the new force did with their design is really innovative. It's really creating that visual identity. Okay. Disclaimer: this isn't political. This is just about design. And so the new force ended up using this in quote scary thing, and for the Ghanaian culture, um that looks scary, and we are all wondering, "Hey, what is this?" And then later they decide that, okay, fine, let's they decided, fine, we are unveiling now. Okay, so this over here that they created is making us wonder, where is this coming from? Okay, so sometimes you may use that element of guesswork, or you may decide to do things like that when you want to create some impression, or you want to let the audience for your client really anticipate. Okay, so that's why over here I think um, I think there's one work that we've done where we use something of that sort. Okay, so for instance, we are going to vote. For instance, it's as an event, or let's say it's what can I use? But it's where you use. I spoke about this in, I think, one of the very early lessons about appropriation, where you use a different kind of design theme for a different purpose altogether, and it creates that sort of that anticipation, or that um, your viewers are confused and they want to know what it's about. Okay, but know that if you want to do change the elements which have already been placed together, it wouldn't work. Okay, if KFC decides to change their logo today, people may think that probably it's not KFC, it's not original. Okay, so know when to use some of these things. Okay, so that is all for today. We've spoken about how typography affects the branding, the visual identity, the color, the layout and composition, images, and fundamentals of design. Layout and composition, we didn't speak about that, but basically we spoke about style, and so that should also affect how layout and composition also works here. Because we are done with branding and visual identity, we would like you also to know this definition. It's called mock-up. Okay, so what are mock-ups? So mock-up are ways that when you're done with your design for this for people who are interested in logos. When you're done with your design, you want to let them have that visual identity. You want them to know, oh, okay, this is how your design is going to be used, like, and all. Then you decide to pick pictures of t-shirts and things, place the design in there for for the client to just have a feel of how that logo can be placed on things and it would look like. Okay, so for logo people, most of the times it's all about mockups, but don't shy away from it if you are not into logo making, because like I said, to create an event flyer, mainly I'll use the event flyer, to create any other flyer, mainly if there's an event or there's a main program, you would realize that you have to, in a way, create a logo for that. So this may not be a logo, but it is actually a logo which represents the event theme, the African medical experience. So with this same thing, or with this one, okay, the choice of fonts alone makes this one a font logo on its own. And so you can then use these things, these elements over here, come in here, make a mock-up for this, for a t-shirt and all, and we can develop different things because of the logos that we've created in our um what's the name, for in our event flyers or any flyer that we create. Okay, so these are things that you should look at. If it's art and pictures that you use, you can also make mock-ups for them, for posters, like posters or billboards, um, design advertisement, physical ones, social media, all those things. You would create a pictorial view, just a picture illustration for your clients for all these things. So that's about visual branding and all. Uh, Probably in advanced classes, what we'll do is that we'll teach you how to put all these mockups together. Would end here now. I think for the activities, what we would cover would be activities relating to creating mockups with the logos that we've asked you to do. Thank you for joining.